Hey, I'm Yogi Don, your octogenarian yogi. In these videos, I'll share what I've learned over the years about yoga's ethics, its philosophy, its poses, its breath work, and meditation. YogiDonaldo's YouTube channel is presented by Don English. May we be protected together, may we be nourished together, may we create strength together, may our work together bring fulfillment, and may there be no disharmonies among us. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. This includes a collection of photos from 1993, 2011, and 2016. Ganga Ma. The Ganges has its source in the glaciers high in the Himalayan mountains, not far from the border with China. The river winds through the mountains in a southwesterly direction and reaches the plains near Rishikesh, where it makes a turn toward the east in the Bay of Bengal nearly 1,000 miles away. Its basin is home to 40% of India's over 1 billion people. For thousands of years, the Ganges has supported life, and as a supporter of life, the river has come to be seen as a sacred and holy river, even elevated to the status of a goddess, Ganga Ma, Mother Ganges. As a being with supernatural powers, the river has the power to bring life, to wash away sin, to dispose of the dead. So all along the river, people honor the river through daily ceremonies called Ganga Aarti. Every evening at dusk, in groups and singly, the faithful gather on the banks of the Ganges to give thanks for the day's blessings. At the ashram in Rishikesh, the gardener went to the river every evening, just before sunset, to perform these ceremonies. He did his Thanksgiving ritual, mostly alone, but often people from the ashram joined him. His rituals were repeated along the river in small groups and large groups. Farther downstream, at the holy city of Varanasi, the ritual is very large and very impressive. It's done not just as a sacred ritual, but also as a tourist attraction. It's great theater. The gardener's version was more personal and, to me, much more impressive. I was in Rishikesh in March, and we began with the weather on the chilly side, and by the end of the time that I spent there, it was beginning to get warmer, and everybody was expecting that soon the elephants would be coming down from the mountains to spend the summer. So that was a big exciting thing when we saw the first elephant off in the distance in the Ganges, and then within a week or so, there was another one that came down and was right directly across from the ashram, and I was able to get a fairly decent photo of the elephant in the water. Sunrise on the Ganges at Varanasi is a moment of calm and beauty, one enjoyed by many tourists. Devout Hindus gather on its banks to bathe in the river. Stacks of cremation kindling waiting a new day. Scattered remains from a cremation float down the river. The town of Rishikesh lies on the Ganges at the base of the Himalayan mountains, where the river makes a sharp turn onto the plains as it heads east toward Calcutta. Many residents of Rishikesh have been concerned that earthquakes or glaciers could cause a huge release of water that could destroy the town. On February the 7th, 2021, a dam in the upper reaches of the Ganges was destroyed by a glacier. Hundreds of dam workers were lost or killed. This break did not, however, cause damage in Rishikesh. Somewhere in the dim past, beyond the memory of man, when the earth was ruled by gods and demons, the demon king Mahishasura ruled around the southern Indian city of Mysore. Mahishasura was a shapeshifter, appearing as a demonic warrior or as the raging water buffalo of ignorance who sowed ignorance and discord throughout the area. The goddess Chamundeshwari was sent to deal with him, and in an epic battle between good and evil, she defeated him. Today there's a temple on top of Chamundi Hill, just outside Mysore, that commemorates her victory. As a sort of consolation prize, I guess, the city was called Mahishasuru to placate the demonic king so that he wouldn't return. The British called the city Mysore, and in 2005 it reverted to its traditional name, Maisuru. In modern times, Mysore was the capital of a regional kingdom, and incidentally, one of the city's nicknames is the City of Palaces. In fact, there are 7 palaces throughout the city. On my first trip to India in 1993, we had a 24-hour layover in Singapore. Believe it or not, the price of the ticket, which was not that bad, I think it was $1,200, included this overnight stay in Singapore. While we were there, I realized I hadn't brought a hat with me, and so I started looking around trying to find a cheap hat, and what I found was a $5 hat, sort of like a sailor hat, and turned the brim down and helped shade your eyes. Once in Madras, we had some errands to run before flying off to the opposite side of the subcontinent to Cochin in the southwestern part of the country. My stepdaughter saw this as an opportunity to introduce her mother and me to the pedal rickshaws that were operating in Chennai, where we were staying with them. Basically, the pedal rickshaw is a tricycle with seats in the back and a little canopy that comes over you to help protect you from the sun. But to haul 2 heavy Westerners around was really a job for these poor people. Anyway, we set off, and he got going at a pretty good clip, and going fast enough that my $5 hat flew off. And I thought, okay, there goes the hat, just $5, no big deal. Some kid has found it and will run off with it. But my stepdaughter said, no, we turn around, we go back and get the hat. And she said that in India, things are so precious to people that they feel that it's precious to you too, and they will be there with the hat. And so we turned around, went back, and sure enough, she was right. There was this kid standing there holding my hat, waiting for me to come back and collect it. It was quite a surprise, actually, and but also something that I remembered for other times when I was there, that things really are important to people who don't have an awful lot.
I love it. Sorry.
That's all right. I've been to India 3 times, and I think that one of the things that strikes me the most about India is all of the people. Of course, one of the things that a lot of people talk about is the color, the colorful saris that the women wear, but it's just the people everywhere, all the time. I've gone out there late in the evening, and there are always some people out on the streets, someplace. The whole place is just alive with people. And when I come back to the United States, I feel like I've been dropped into an antiseptic environment. No people, cars, but no people, no people on the streets. In India, you walk on the street, you see people, you meet people, you greet people. If you don't actually speak to them, at least you nod or make eye contact with them. And there is a contact. The contrast is really striking to me when I come back to the United States. Come back to an environment where people are basically hidden away. On my second trip to India, I was staying with a friend, and I got there just, let's see, I guess it was just before midnight on New Year's Eve. And so we stayed up on his rooftop, the house where he was living, and watched the fireworks and that sort of thing. And then the next morning we went shopping. And it seems like everybody else in Delhi went shopping on New Year's Day. The place was jam-packed. I have a photo of a street scene in Jaipur. One of the guides, temple guide, took me up on the roof of this temple, and it was a good place because I could look down at this traffic circle and see the total chaos of the life in the traffic circle. I mean, people walking across the circle, through it, around it, back. I mean, it was crazy. And that's India. People everywhere. People everywhere. For me, there are a lot of things that stand out in my memory about India, but the visit to the Sikh Golden Temple in Amritsar is one that's really special. Amritsar is only a short distance from the Pakistani border. There's been a lot of tension between the two countries since the partition back in 1949, when Pakistan was created out of what was then India as the British pulled out of the area. An important tourist attraction is to see the lowering of the flags at the border. Pakistan on the other side, India on this side. It was more like an American football scene, with Indians shouting at the Pakistanis on the other side, the Pakistanis shouting slogans back at the Indians. And all the while I'm remembering that these are two countries that are nuclear powers, and they're out there taunting each other. It was crazy, to say the least. The Sikh Golden Temple is located in Amritsar. It was first built in 1577, but the Sikhs were invaded several times by the Mughals and the Afghan armies, and each time it was invaded, the temple was destroyed, but again rebuilt each time. In 1809, Maharaja Ranjit Singh rebuilt the temple in marble and copper and overlaid it with gold foil. That was in 1830. I've heard that he donated his weight in gold for this project. The temple is open for worship by all men and women without caste distinction. A tenet of the religion is community service. The temple runs a free community kitchen that feeds thousands of people daily for free. The day I was there, our guide said that they would feed about 50,000 people that day. In the 1980s, there was a lot of friction between the temple and the Indian government authorities. Some members of the Sikh community were working toward the creation of a new Sikh nation. In 1984, the Indian government invaded the complex to capture the leader of the movement. In the process, a portion of the complex was destroyed, and about 1,000 Sikhs lost their lives. The complex, of course, was immediately rebuilt. It's a beautiful space and is visited by about 100,000 people a day. The complex has been completely renovated, and to my eye, there was no evidence of damage from the conflict that took place in '84. Sometimes the most interesting things happen, and you don't either think to take a picture or you don't have your camera. So because I didn't take any pictures, I'm just using these other pictures of some other wildlife that I've seen in India. Most of these pictures that you're going to see were taken at Gir National Park, which is a refuge for the Asiatic lion that's been brought back from the edge of extinction. First time I was in India, I went to a mosque. It was the first time I'd ever been to a mosque. It was a little country mosque out in the middle of nowhere. Actually, it was on a little island where Tipu Sultan, who had taken over part of South India around the city of Mysore, or his family had years and years before. Anyway, the British had been in a battle, a series of wars with Tipu Sultan, and finally at the end of the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War in 1799, he was killed. And near the site where he was killed, there was this little country mosque. The imam in the mosque was looking for donations to help with their library, and he took us back into the library to show us what kind of problems they were dealing with. And most of the old books that they had in the library, he opened one of them up to show, and the paper had been eaten, he said, by ants. Some sort of an ant that ate the paper, but didn't eat the ink. And so the Arabic letters, the Arabic words were all left there with the paper eaten away from around them. So there was this really interesting little filigree appearance to all the pages. And I mean, the pages were not completely devoid of any paper, but there were enough gone that it was really curious and interesting looking to see the words that were left on the page that had no paper around them. Anyway, it was very interesting, and it's too bad that I didn't take a picture because it's one of those cases where the picture would have been definitely worth 1,000 words. May our bodies be strong, relaxed, and healthy. May our minds be calm, clear, and serene. May our hearts be filled with loving kindness, and may we live our lives in harmony with our true inner selves. May we be friendly toward the joyful, compassionate toward the suffering. May we celebrate the good in others and remain impartial to their faults and imperfections. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Our hands in prayer at our hearts, we bow to each other. Namaste. Thank you for being here. I hope you'll subscribe and share these videos.